Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning. My name is Joe Sellepack. I'm the Executive Director at the Broome County Council of Churches, and one of the privileges that I get as the Executive Director is to get around to different churches and understand what is happening in ministry in our area. In this post-Easter time when we're concentrating on all these risen appearances of Jesus, we get a chance to look at what the real foundation of ministry is all about. And so today, with us today is a couple of people. I have David Masland, who's the district superintendent of the Binghamton district of the United Methodist Church, and we have with us too,
Patricia Cardin.
Patricia Cardin from Sarah Jane Johnson Memorial United Methodist Church, and they have some exciting things that are going on at their church. But right now, one of the things that kind of gets my juices flowing, let's just say that, is this idea, you know, when Jesus, after the crucifixion happened and the disciples all gather together inside of an upper room, and they're all sitting there in fear. The text actually says in fear of the Jews, right? So they're afraid of what's out there, and they're afraid that they're next, basically. And so they have this locked door, and the symbol of the locked door is kind of an interesting idea. And then into the middle of that locked environment, Jesus appears, right? And he just shoots up and he says, "Look, it's me." And you want to know it? Well, look at here are my hands, and here's my side, here's my feet. Go ahead, play around with it, see if I'm real or not. And then he breathes on them, the Spirit comes, and then after that we have the birth of the church, right? So this is the kind of season that we're in right now. And in some ways that actually is the the symbol, or the, you know, it could be even indicative of where the church is at right now. Do you think that that's far off, David?
No, actually. It's a really apt image, actually. The church is not dissimilar from human beings. You know, there's this kind of normal lifespan of a church, and churches tend to have times of vision and vitality and growth and excitement, and then there's a peak to that, and there is also a time of decline and death. And I think many churches have been in decline for quite some time, and with decline comes a significant amount of fear, and with it also therefore the image of the locked door. You know, everything oftentimes outside the church is seen as potential enemy to take something, rob something from us. And so there's this fear response that causes us to do what the disciples did and just kind of close ourselves in and circle the wagons and try to protect and try to survive, when in fact the purpose of the church is to do what Jesus did, you know, to receive the Holy Spirit and to be sent out and to do ministry in the world, and not to be drawn in, but in fact to give away what we have. And so,
and it seems like you know, in the after the locked door, Jesus all of a sudden appears in certain places, and it's like he pops up, and next thing you know, the church is there. He pops up again, the church is there, and you know, and there's the, you know, he appears on the water or right along the wheat, you know, and it just seems like all through the rest of the story, we're struggling to keep up with Jesus, right? I mean, that seems to be where the church is supposed to be, right? Just trying to keep up, struggling to figure out where he's going next.
Yeah, our job is to follow the leading of the Spirit, and often, you know, our tendency as human beings is to kind of institutionalize or to normalize the places where we've experienced the Spirit. You know, we have this wonderful experience in a baptism or in a wedding or a worship service where the Spirit is very real to us. And so we want to kind of recreate that in the same space, in the same way. We think the worship has to look exactly like it did at the moment when I experienced the Spirit. And in fact, what God wants to do is, God's ahead of us, like you said. Something, always creating something new, always meeting people in a different place. That's the challenge of the church, is to be flexible enough to let go of what's been important to us, to be able to kind of be out there with God, whatever God's doing in the world.
And so if death and the grave isn't the final answer, you know, and it just seems that resurrections pop up all over the place, like, you know, it just seems like
that's what happened at Sarah Jane.
Yeah, no, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what's happening at Sarah Jane then. I mean, it's kind of exciting when you start seeing a church that's, how old is it, Patty? I mean, it's, you were saying earlier?
At about 135 years old.
135 years old.
Yeah.
And for it to
the building, the location,
right.
I mean, the incorporation. George F. Johnson built that building that's now known as Sarah Jane about 87 years ago.
Now, some of our viewers may be curious, and they may not have been here 135 years ago when the church was built, but it's got a curious name. So you want to?
Yeah. Well, George F. Johnson, we know, is one of our patriarchs and the person for whom Johnson City is named. And he rose up out of a very, very poor and underprivileged background, but a very hardworking family. He lived in servants' quarters. He knew what it felt like to be treated as a second-class citizen, and worked his way up until he was part owner of Endicott and Johnson Shoes, and then father of the Square Deal, nationally the 8-hour day, 5-day work week, fair wage and benefits. So he wanted the world to know that his values came from his faith, and his faith came from his mother, Sarah Jane Johnson.
So Sarah Jane was his mother then, and so he built a church in memory of her, which is the Sarah Jane Johnson Memorial Church.
Right.
And it's still there on the corner of Main Street and
Arch.
Arch, right there, exactly.
Baldwin.
And Johnson City is known as the city of the Square Deal, right? So it's right there on the arches too. So what is that? What is the Square Deal, and what is the dream of?
Well, George F.'s dream was a valley that would be governed by the Golden Rule, where people would treat others the way they wanted to be treated. And we've talked before about that's the essence of leadership. The Golden Rule really is the essence of leadership, that we're called to set the tone.
And in what way is that embodied in the Dream Center?
Well, we feel that we've been called to keep the Johnson legacy alive for a new generation. It's a legacy that's too precious to lose, but at the same time, we don't want to make it into a memorial that we just look at the past and pine over the way things used to be. We want to reinvent that spirit for a new generation in fresh ways. So we're empowering others to make their lives better in the same spirit.
And what are some of the things that you do in order to make that work?
Well, we just finished our 5th annual bicycle giveaway, where we collect bikes year-round, and the Southern Tier Bicycle Club, headed by Augie Mueller, Dick Porterfield, Steve Bard, they fix up bikes year-round for us to give away. And this year we gave away 200 bicycles. 200
bikes?
Yeah, Saturday we did.
So not only are people learning how to repair bikes, but they're actually riding them, right?
They're riding them. On Sunday morning, all the people who were walking on Saturday were on bikes on Sunday. So,
all right.
Yeah.
And these bikes are going to what are some of the who are some of the people that they're going to?
Well, the way that it started is we started a summer lunch program, and after it was done, you know, when we were debriefing over, you know, what worked, what didn't, how can we get more kids here, it just came out of a brainstorming process, which is really what we do. We do everything we can by discernment. And so we just started collecting the bikes, and then we went to the Southern Tier Bike Club, and they said they would love to fix them up. And in the past, it's been for people, for kids to get to the lunch and summer programs that get them off the street. We've also provided bikes for people who need transportation to work. So then other churches have referred them, you know, Endicotts, who has referred us, and agencies. This year we partnered with Stay Healthy Kids, and we made a goal to provide a bike for all the kids who come to our after-school program, which is a gang and dropout prevention program. And so all the parents came and they got a bike. And then we also gave bikes to people who need them for transportation, and all the kids.
Now, it would seem to me, and this goes back to some of the ideas that we've been talking about, David. I mean, if you start giving bikes away to kids, and you give bikes away to adults who need to be able to get to work, and you make that a focus of ministry, what does that do for the church? I mean, what does it make the church think about? Because I think it's bigger than just a bike, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of our problems in the church is that even these big, beautiful buildings are basically invisible. People drive by them every day on the way to work or on the way to the store, and the conception of the church being anything that maybe is significant for our community or for their lives is kind of lost. It's must be a nice building, probably great for a few people to go there, but I would never. It has nothing to do with my life. Well, when the church gets involved in ministry, meeting needs, listening to the needs in the community, really understanding what the families are going through in the community, and really beginning to get responsive to those needs, all of a sudden the perception of the church is shifting in the community, and all of a sudden the gospel isn't just something people preach about or talk about, but it's something that's lived out. And people begin to see Christ in us, then they become, I think, a lot more curious about, well, what else is going on in this church? What else, is this something that I can become a part of? Especially young people in our culture these days, they don't want to go to a meeting. They don't want to go and talk about faith. What they want is a faith that really makes a difference.
It's life.
That transforms the community.
Right.
They want to be part of something bigger than them to really change the world in some significant way. And so that's what attracts people, I think, to a church these days is this faith something real? Is it just up here, or is it something that really is making a difference in people's lives? Right. And if so, I'm curious about that. So that does a lot for us. It shifts not only the way we think, but the way others think about the church as well.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, my mind's just going a million miles a minute. So you have a bike, and the bike has to go on a road, right? And the road has to be bike friendly. And you know that there are environmental reasons that you're going to be involved in this, and so your faith has something to do with the environment. It has something to do with the street. It has something to do with what's going on at the city hall. It has something to It has something to do with the decisions that are being made as the roads are being improved and widened and put in bike lanes. So you start seeing that as the child is riding, just to have a safe route to get to Sarah Jane, so that they can have a healthy meal over the summer for summer lunch